Sacred Centers by Dion Fortune. Curious passage from the Book of Enoch. I'll read it to you. For lead and tin, the two metals, are not produced from the earth. They are in fact produced from a fountain. And in this fountain lies an angel. That's from the Book of Enoch. Sacred Centers by Dion Fortune. I don't think that it will be disputed that certain places exert a powerful influence on human beings. The word Egypt, for example. Egypt seems to be the best known one for most people, returned from there having had an experience of some kind. It is said that this is caused by the electricity generated by the ever-moving sands of the Great Sahara Desert, which changes the normal rate of vibration. Then an extension of consciousness is the result. This must naturally depend on the individual. A purely material person would be unaffected in a very different way from one who is psychic. Unfortunately, we are seldom given the ordinary man's experience, which might in many cases be of more interest and use to humanity than the vague visions of the psychically inclined. In every country there are centers, but unfortunately, during the Christian era, they have been appropriated by the Church, and some of the most vital and have been prefixed by the title of saint, when perhaps the influence exerted might not be at all of a saintly character. Thus the old name that hath given the clue to a particular influence is submerged, and in this way much of the ancient lore is lost, because the Church recognizes only one kind of experience, that of the purely religious ecstasy, which is the most emotional and primitive, therefore hard to control, and therefore to the ordinary mind the most wonderful, for it is a state of intoxication, and is therefore purely selfish and a personal experience entirely to do with the individual development along a particular line. And from the physical point of view is nearly always abortive because undirected. I emphasize the physical effect because what its mysteries are on the other plane or state of consciousness, one can only dimly sense or understand the effect on the journeying of the soul. There is little, if any, guidance given by the Church to those who open these doors, for it is not given at all to an experience of the higher religious emotion, and instead of a readjustment of values, a further vision or extension of consciousness, and a breaking through some of the veils of matter. The effect is, as I have said, abortive, for the experience is so shattering, and to the untrained and unprepared mind, that it disturbs the normal outlook of life. There is also another side of these experiences, and of this we hear but little. Those who enter the dark portals which lead to the dread subterranean palaces of the Kropol, and whose ways is no longer that of a normal individual, return from the journey from their bliss toward evil intensified. In the mystery schools, each initiative was carefully watched and guided so that the experience should not be lost or allowed to destroy instead of reconstruct. We go to these places and we are told what kind of experience to expect. Beyond that, it will be of a religious order or contact with nature, a vague term. And therefore we go to a negative condition of mind, with will and an intellect unprepared. And so the real value is completely lost in an emotional storm. As I've said before, I believe that in the old times lie the secret of the influence exerted, and those who have to do with the physical, rather the contact that lies deep in the earth. In magical writings we read that each metal has its peculiar planet. Let me read that again. In magical writings we read that each metal has its particular planet, that each human being is under the influence of a planet, and it may be that a scientific fact lies in this statement, which in the future will be explained in scientific language by scientific men. During the eclipse of the sun in 1928, some experiments were made by a Dr. Kolosko, whose solutions of gold, silver, lead, and tin pictured that were taken these before, during, and after the eclipse showed remarkable changes in activity, indicating that the celestial phenomena had an effect, and a very marked one, on the solutions. It would be interesting to study geologically these centers, their ancient names, qualities apart from those attributed to them by the Church, and see if we can get at the particular energizing force, and so direct, if consciously, to our purpose. By working along these lines, man could cooperate with celestial powers who had their physical forces in the earth, and so gain much in health, power, and intellect. In every country in the head, heart center, or shall we say spiritual center, and there are linked to similar centers in other countries, and sometimes form interesting diagrams. We can all spot the head center, for that is naturally the capital of the country. But the heart, or spiritual center, is more obscure and only known to comparatively few. It is quite possible that in a country where there may be many centers, as there are in the human body, for a country has a definite life, a soul of its own. To give an example on purely religious lines, the great cathedrals of England, Durham, Chester, Lincoln, Wells, Winchester, and Canterbury, form the double triangle or hexagram. But these centers are very old and were the sites of the pagan temples in pre-Christian times. And to recover the types of influence, one would have to seek their old names or meanings of the names. Such diverse sites cannot all exert the same influence fundamentally, though it is possible that those only in tune to Christian influence and going no deeper than the level might only contact a particular vibration. The mineral, the metallic world is the oldest and densest, and in it must lie many secrets. Could we contact unconsciously, much might be discovered. Could we contact it consciously? The mineral and metallic world is the oldest and densest, and in it must lie many secrets. Could we contact its consciousness? Much might be discovered. Much might be rediscovered. Much might be recovered. Let me read that one more time. The mineral and metallic world is the oldest and densest, and in it lie many secrets. Could we contact its consciousness? Much might be recovered for the benefit of mankind. That the ancient Druids knew of the connection of planetary with physical matter is proved by their circles. In the south of England, taking Salisbury Hill as the earth, they had worked out correctly the orbs of the planets in relation to it. The orb of Venus being the circle of stones at Winterboro Basset. The temples of the sun and the moon are just north of the hill. The orbit of the sun encircling it, the orbit of Mars, it is at Marsden. The orbit of Mercury at Watkin Hill. Of Jupiter at Casterly Camp. That of Saturn at Stonehenge. There are also the 7 churches in Ireland, the 5 churches of the Stolling, Kent. Their tradition tells us of 7, and there are many others. They were all pagan temples. When St. Augustus wrote in 597 AD to Pope Gregory for advice concerning the many pagan places of worship, he found the answer he received was, to use them when possible in order that the people may be more familiarity resort to the places to which they have been accustomed. All over the United Kingdom are the places for the Druids, but nothing without knowledge, and one hopes that endeavor will be made to recover their ancient wisdom, the proof of which is to be aptly put forth in Mr. Lewis Spence's Mysteries of Britain. I am convinced that they had some method of contacting the great subconscious of the world, where the past, present, and future lie ready to be unfolded. That their training was a long and arduous one is certain, for that an ordered training does develop powers latent in everyone, is proved by those who have been fortunate enough to be in touch with a teacher who is also an initiate and initiator. But I am sure that not only the teacher, but the time and place are to be taken into account. We walk this wonderful world of ours as if we were not of it, but a creation apart. But we are the world, and have within our bodies every part of it, and therefore must be affected by all that concern it. The magnetic qualities of the stone and mass of metals, the generating life of animals and vegetable nature, all play their part. But could we bring our intellect to help us? I feel sure that we could attain a result beyond our expectations. Let me read that again. The magnetic qualities of its stone and mass of metals, generating life of animals and vegetable nature, all play their part. But could we bring our intellect to help us? I feel sure that we could attain a result beyond our expectations. The magicians of old had time to work in secret, for he was more or less an outcast, unless he allied himself with others such as the Druid did, and later Rosicrucians, so forming a strong body. The modern magician specializes and is a freelance. Men like those who have attained such tremendous speed in the air, doctors and men of science with their microscopes and electrical appliances, all these are trained occultists, and on the path of adeptship, and far on the path to adeptship. They are highly trained specialists and an efficient path of a whole, which united will bring to us knowledge of the world we live in, for they have reached an extension of consciousness far beyond that of the ordinary man, and their training has been as hard as, if not harder, than that of their predecessors of old.